but then they sent us home. They said 6 weeks we'll do this again.
I know, that's what's so weird. I've never heard
I totally forgot. No, I was. I was not. There's 5 of us.
Yeah, that's
We all had to stand in front of the judge
it's like, hey, look,
and give
somehow
testimony.
it got a little confusing here.
So the judge gave this stern look that,
If you take this seriously, you should take this seriously. One second, one second.
how are you supposed to know that?
What year was this?
And we're all like, if you don't get it's all done with that shit.
Yeah, they didn't.
He embarrassed us and just told us to recognize us. That's all he wanted to do. He knew that we were.
Yeah, you were sufficiently sorry. Yeah, for your oversight.
Clockworks now. I've got 18.
Yeah, but who's saying what? Who's saying what though?
How are you? Paid 2,000 miles.
Welcome, everyone, to this regular city council meeting for February 3rd, 2025. Marie, would you call the roll?
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe,
Here.
McLaughlin,
Here.
Manetza.
Here. The invocation this evening is by Pastor Marshall Holtluver of Covenant Life Church. Sure, that's what I say. And please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's join together in prayer. Father, we invoke your name and ask that you would bless our evening. We thank you, Lord, for a city that calls upon your name and that desires for your blessing. And so we pray for that this evening. As we spend time together, may we speak together in love. May we honor and respect one another, but above all, may we respect you. So we give you this evening, Lord, and we pray that you be blessed. And we pray this in your name alone. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, next item is new appointments to boards and commissions. Did you read those?
Item A, Roger Bergman to the Main Street Downtown Development Authority with a term ending June 30, 2025. And item B, Amy Lalek-Prinzi to the Historic Conservation District Commission with a term ending June 30, 2027.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Any questions on either of these appointments?
Didn't take Roger long to get back in the game, did it?
Yeah, well, we didn't let him,
where he started.
we didn't let him get away. If there are no questions, would please call the roll.
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Now we're to the approval of the consent and regular agendas. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by McLaughlin. Any changes to either the consent or regular agenda from anyone? Not that they're a long agenda, but
It's really long.
if there are none, then please call the roll.
Fritz,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. So it brings us to our first call to the audience. This is the first of two opportunities. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call may dial 616-935-3203. Who would like to address council?
Good evening. I'm going to speak again on a topic that I spoke at the December 6th meeting. Unfortunately, I was slow in getting that comment in, so it didn't make the meeting packet. So I sent it in again last week after I finally saw that the minutes had been issued last week. So I'm going to read it. It's entitled February 3rd, 2025 Council Meeting, Comment by Jay Hagan on Additional City Lakefront Parking. Eben March Project P20-018. I've heard reference to the potential addition of lakefront parking in the vicinity of Lake Avenue, south of the Lake Avenue South Harbor intersection, and from Nodos to near the corner of South Harbor and Grand Avenue several times in the past year or so. A FOIA was executed in September 2024 to obtain drawings on this project. The FOIA returned two Eben March drawings for Project 20-0018, South Harbor Drive, City of Grand Haven. One drawing consisted of 5 sheets. It was dated September 2020 and showed approximately 100 spaces, or 100 parking spaces on South Harbor, south of Nodos. And the other single sheet drawing showed a roundabout at the intersection of Lake Avenue and South Harbor at a new 20-space parking lot to the north of the roundabout. It is important that the public is aware of these potential projects so they can voice their opposition. So I'm submitting both drawings and this comment at the February 3rd council meeting to make them part of the public record associated with the meeting. And I think it is important that we bring these up, even though it was done during the prior city administration, because we often see projects resurrect themselves, and all of a sudden we'll see a project pop up for approval. And, maybe it'll say, well, generally they do say, that recommended by the city administration. I know this city administration is not in favor of it, but we never know when these projects will, resurrect again. And these drawings were not just sketches. When you have five pages on a drawing, and they show, all the parking, all the elevations, they show the extension further to the west with the big cement blocks so that it's all level with the roadway. I mean, a lot of work went into this, and I really, in my own mind, I wonder why the city spent all this money when we had all these liabilities facing us. I don't think it was a good spend. I don't know why it was done, and I would like to see city council and our city administration speak up and say, we're not going to do this in the future. We're not going to put parking right up on the beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be pretty quick. Oliver Champagne, 540 D Avenue, apartment 5. One, I'm here to applaud the Public Works Department over the past couple of weeks dealing with our snowstorm. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I love how we have people a second shift attempting to actually tackle the problem when it comes at its worst. My only concern, and I've talked to a few people throughout the city, is we're not clearing off sidewalks quick enough for some people. And I know that's a big issue and task to have at hand, but I'd love to see in the future greater supports to also make it available for people to walk so that they don't also have to impede road traffic to attempt to jump over mounds and things like that. And the only other thing I have is tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. at the Unicorn Tavern, I'm hosting an event on the topic of Christian nationalism, which I think is quite important to anyone involved in any type of government. In the past few years, I've seen it become quite a prevalent topic in the way that people use their rhetoric regarding government and religion. I think it's an important conversation to have so that we can recognize it, determine its value, if any, and properly address it. So I hope that if you guys, any of you have a chance to make it, I'd love to see you there. It's at 6:30 p.m. at the Unicorn Tavern. I have 4 panelists, Jared Kramer, rector at St. John's Episcopal, George Lunsko, a Grand Valley professor of sociology, mainly in the sociology of religion, Wes McGee, who's a CEO of nonprofit around here, helps medical professionals find roles out here, and then also Mac Davis, who I know you guys heard plenty of times in the past, but Ohio State emeritus professor and well-versed in his ways. So I hope that you guys can maybe make it. It might be long. Come for whatever time you have, but I think it'll be interesting and important conversation. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the call to the audience, but there will be a second opportunity to address council at the end of the meeting. That brings us to our consent agenda. Marie, could you read that?
Item A, approve the regular council meeting minutes for January 21st, 2025. And item B, approve the bills memo in the amount of $797,054.91.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Any questions on either of these items? If not, would you please call the roll?
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Okay, brings us to new business. First item of new business, please.
Item A, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve a non-exclusive perpetual easement to Metronet Infrastructure Group LLC of Delaware as outlined in proposed easement documents. Administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by McLaughlin. Dana, is this one yours to explain? Oh, it's Derek. Derek, would you explain this to us, please?
Yes, good evening, Your Honor, Council. So Metronet is an authorized fiber optic company, a utility that's installing their infrastructure in the city. They've been authorized in September. Part of their needs is to find a home for one of their main cabinets. And they usually look for a piece of property to purchase, but they couldn't find one in the area in which their infrastructure was close enough to. So then they look for easements. They like the airport. There was a couple areas out there, obviously a lot of wide open areas. We settled on this location really out of the way, off in the northwest corner of the property. It's 12 foot by 30 foot, perpetual but not exclusive. I took this to the airport board. They were excited about it, and they recommended that we pursue this. So then I negotiated with MetroNet, and I gave them the screws. So I just want you to know we got some funds out of them comparatively what they were originally offering. So a $30,000 one-time payment for the easement is what they've offered, and we recommend acceptance of. So it'll be just to the east of our driveway to a storage barn that we have out there, and just to the west of Shape's driveway that's just east of the airport. So should be out of the way. Shouldn't have any effect on the airport long-term, and there's no utilities in conflict. We don't own the right-of-way, so we couldn't authorize them to go in there. The right-of-way is technically controlled by the road commission, so it is on airport property.
Will there be a structure there, or just a cabinet, or what's going to be there?
The cabinet's going to be about 5 foot tall, about 8 feet long, maybe 4 foot wide. So a little bit bigger than a normal cabinet you would see around town. And so, yeah.
There's no sight line issues or anything like that?
No, should be, and again, it's out of the right of way, so it's way back. If you think about it, you look at it, it's definitely no problems there.
All right. Questions?
No, I was hoping, I was talking to Ashley earlier, because back in the day, you used to have franchise fees, but this falls under the Metro Act, so they get to come through our town and do their digging and everything else they want, just like AT&T and any of the other ones. So this is nice, at least we get some money out of them, so this is a good thing for us, so it helps the airport out. So thank you.
Yeah, so the Metro Act currently, we actually do get some revenue from the Metro Act. And before SURF and MetroNet came to town, we were getting about $45,000 a year that goes in basically the general fund, and, because we put it in the right-of-ways, I believe. Maybe I misspoke, maybe it's in the street fund, but either way, they both impact the general fund. So with SURF and MetroNet coming in, they pay per foot. Now it's probably pennies per foot annually, but it's an annual payment, Mike.
That's good.
That I mean, if it doubles or triples, I wouldn't be surprised because of how much these two companies are investing in their in citywide infrastructure.
So we'll recoup some money from them, then, at least a little bit.
Yeah, and I just haven't looked into educate me myself and for you to understand what that impact is, but I don't think it's going to be pocket change. So
Okay, thank you.
Well, and our action tonight is to do with an easement for a piece of equipment.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with running utilities around town.
correct. Yeah, just a little
This is
easement.
for location.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Please call the roll.
Fritz?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item B, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve Potter's Field memorial plaques located in the Lake Forest Cemetery. Administration recommends approval and the Cemetery Board recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Mr. Lemke, would you like to introduce this for us?
Good evening, Council. Derek Lemke, Facilities Manager for the city. Tonight, before you is a letter from the Cemetery Board stating their approval and support for a project in Potter's Field within the cemetery. It's a memorial project that has seven large plaques with all of the names of the unnamed buried that are in the field. With us tonight is the majority of the Cemetery Board, and specifically Chuck Fuller, who has done an extensive amount of research on Potter's Field and is here tonight to tell you a little bit about the project and answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, well, Mr. Fuller, would you like to come forward? Kind of give us a brief rundown, and don't read all those names, but give us a brief rundown of what this is.
Hello, council. I'm glad that you're taking the time to hear my little story. And book that you see here is a collection that started about 24 years ago. And as a child, on almost a weekly or a regular basis, we would go to the cemetery with my grandmother, and she'd always have to attend the graves. In the process, she would always say, "Oh yeah, this was our neighbor," and she would always have stories to tell about people. And we got to a certain area within the cemetery, and she just stopped, and she was staring there in a distance, and I said, "Is something the matter?" She says, "Well," she said, "there are people buried right here," and she says, "I've got like 5 brothers and sisters and grandparents, but she said, I have no idea where they are." She says, "I just know they're there." And she said that always just kind of bothered her. Well, that stuck with me somehow through many years. And when I started to do my own personal genealogy in town here, I thought, you know what, I'm going to see who Grandma's talking about. Well, I did find her relatives, but also I found 671 more that are buried there. Actually, it's more than that. I'm sorry, 861, I'm sorry. And I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but it's a pretty scant area. It's got a few broken stones that are there. But Grand Haven was a young town at that time, and a lot of people here were immigrants from the Netherlands. There's been a lot of stillbirths, a lot of childhood diseases. There's probably almost half, not quite half, of children that are buried there that didn't make it through all the blight of things. And some families that were actually wiped out. There were like this one couple, they lost all 4 of their children. Then he lost his wife, and then shortly after, he could not cope with that, so he decided he wanted to join them. So there's a lot of tragic stories there, a lot of people. Well, I should back up just a hair and say Pottersfield is designated as an area for the indigent, the poor, the unknown, and they were buried at the county's expense. And they were buried in literally pine boxes, shoulder to shoulder, head to toe, and without obviously proper markings. And so in those names that I have researched, it just boggled my mind the amount of people over the years that I've talked to about this that never even, number one, heard of a Pottersfield, and number 2, would never realize that there's that many people buried within that area. And original records, I'm told by a couple sources and by old readings from the newspapers and stuff, there's about up to 1,400 in there. But there was a large fire years ago in the Highland Park area, and it kind of affected some of the records that were kept close by at the cemetery. So we don't know exactly. But I do have a definite count of the 871. And I've got all their names here. I've got, because of the way of a lot of them had died or come to the end of their life, the newspaper covered the stories quite well, meaning like it was usually like a drowning or a ship that was set fire or whatever, and people lost their lives out there, or they washed up on shore, or various reasons like that. And so it was really, family a lot of times couldn't be contacted. So they would just bury them as unknown. I have several listed here, unknown. I've got the dates and everything. But it also wasn't uncommon for later in years for the families to come along as maybe they were prospering a little bit better in the town and establishing that they would go to the cemetery, and now they might order a little marker to put somewhere in there. I mean, not knowing exactly where they're buried, but just a marker saying that they're there. And also, it went the other way. They may have exhumed the bodies and would rebury them and join them with the family plot, which came later down the years. And so it was really kind of hard to, I mean, even, they were kind of on the move, let's say. And about early 1900s, Pottersfield started to become full. They were at capacity. And so I just found in recent documentation that they expanded Potter's Field, but they don't call it Potter's Field. They just, across from where Potter's Field is currently, they just started putting bodies over there as well. They were considered Potter Field burials, even though they're not in the actual Potter Fields plot. So it's always been a neglected area. And I always felt it was a dishonor to have that many people, and a lot of the names go back to some prominent names in this town. And it just really bothered me that they couldn't be recognized. And I can remember going back to my grandmother, she'd say, you know, you look around and you'd see Mr. Smith here and so there, but, you know, we weren't good enough to be recognized. Or had the funds to do so, I should say, is probably the proper words. So it's been neglected for years, and the people say, well, how did you find all these names? Well, I found them through the records at the library, which is really a big supporter of all this, Jeanette Wyden at the library, and through the county records and old ledgers and whatnot, and reading all the old Grand Haven newspapers. And just when I thought I had them all, 2 weeks ago, I came across this article in the Tribune from 1932, and they're talking about Potter's Field and what a demise this area is and how it's been neglected and the importance of the people that are buried there. And there was a call out to the community then in 1932, let's clean this place up, let's make recognition. So as this writer is walking through here, I'll just read you one little paragraph as she's describing some stones there. She said, on my walk, another stone shows 2 tiny graves that read, my only treasures. August 27, 1878, the children of Mrs. Munt, which is mute evidence that there was a tragedy long forgotten because those stones are now no longer there. So there's a lot of that went on. So I should also mention that I'm also a recent board member of the Lake Forest. And along the way and along knowing that I did some of these research and stuff, I come across some great people that said, hey, let's get the ball rolling. You know, you've got the Swiftneys back here, and you got Jerry, and you got Scott, and there's several others that aren't here that are willing to pitch in and to get this rolling. So I will end with that, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have. But we're hoping to have this accomplished by spring, early summer. And we've already got big celebration dedications going on because there will be 7 plaques, bronze plaques out there that's going to list everybody's name that we know that are buried in there, and it's going to also list their death dates. So as people drive through there and stuff, and then there's also going to be a separate sign, kind of like a state historical marker that, even though it's not going to be a state, but we're going to do one that just explains the history of Potter's Field and what it is. So that's what I have to say in a nutshell. I mean, I could talk forever on what has been found and whatnot, but I'm going to turn it over to Jerry and to Scott because they have information on the markers and on the funding thus far. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yep.
Good evening, Council and Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The plaques that we're referring to, we brought a mock-up if anybody hasn't seen what we're talking about, but Chuck and the cemetery board has expended a fair amount of time, particularly Chuck, researching this for the past 100 years, and these plaques are being funded through private money, so the cost to the city is very limited. We believe that we've left some blank spaces in these plaques to add names if we need to. And this project encompasses about $50,000 of donated money. And I think that the city has some plans for an informational sign about Potter's Field that would be an additional $6,000 or so, but we believe, to not burden the city with any expense, that could probably be captured through another foundation or another request of some sort. So we're here tonight asking for support of council to approve the placement of these plaques, and we did bring a board to give you some sort of look in case you haven't seen it. They're bronze, and they're fairly big. They're 4 foot and 6 foot, and they have 100 and some 132 names on each bronze plate. And but we're cognizant of the fact that we don't want it to be any burden financially to the city, but would like to find some sort of approval going forward to put this Potter's Field at a new level, a new look, a new explanation of what it meant to Grand Haven's history to have these people's names now recognized.
Okay, can you show us what you brought?
Sure.
So there's still opportunity for charitable donation to support this, is what you're saying?
Correct. So the first $50,000 to do these bronze plates has been secured through the Crane Foundation and some other entities. But there was, somebody can help me chip in here about the city's part. Like the city needs a,
We're just basically asking the city at this time to contribute its $7,019.90 to finish the project.
Okay.
And that would be all 7 of the bronze markers.
so there's some stone out there already that marks something, but
It
these.
just says Potter's Field on that?
Yeah, so then we'd probably have about 182 names on each plate.
Turn it around so they can see it on
I'm so
TV.
sorry.
And this doesn't necessarily depict the placement. That's something that will need to be done with the cemetery, the
Why
board.
don't you set that where it can be picked up, down there where it can be picked up by the cameras? Thank you.
As I said, as with placement, that's between the city and the people installing where you might want to go. We just kind of were trying to give you an idea
Right, this
of
is
what
not,
it will look like.
this isn't the final placement, this is an
Correct. This
illustration.
is just an illustration to see, yeah.
Okay, all right. And like I say, if anyone listening would be interested in contributing to either defray the city's costs or just to make it better, then I'm sure that we could receive and accept donations.
And we do have one more sign that we're working on quoting, and that's the history sign.
Okay,
And then that would be all of them.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for all that illustration, we appreciate that. And now the public is better informed as well. Questions from council?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for all the research.
Yes, thanks, Chuck, for all your hard work. But giving recognition to people is really a good thing for us. They've been wanting to do this for, I think it's about time we finally do this. I'm full support of this.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, I just want to thank you for what had to be, 20 years, probably a ton. I understand how much research you, as an amateur historian myself, I can appreciate how much work was involved in trying to get that right in order for us to do something like this, which is, by the way, a beautiful way to honor the lives of those who came before us and a part of our history. So I thank you for that, and I'm also happy that you are considering or planning a historical sign to explain all of this, rather than just have the ones with the names on there. So, pardon me? Sure.
Well,
Is that
Yeah.
okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, yes, you may.
I forgot to mention though, but on the signage, like I said, the museum and the genealogy department, everything is supporting us, but we're also going to put a little information on there. Like if people see their family up there, might guess it's their family, that we're going to direct them to the library for additional help or additional research that's available to them, that this is just simply a name and a date. More information if wanted would be available to them with the help from them. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
All done?
I'm good.
Well, I think this is great, long time coming, appreciate all the effort. I think that as a community, how we honor our dead speaks volumes about who we are. And this is who we are. So thank you. If there are no other questions, would you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. All right, that is all of our new business for this evening. It brings us to report by city council. Who would like to go first?
I'm good.
Well, seeing it's baseball season,
Jesus.
almost. Tigers, hey, pitchers and catchers are reporting, so, and I see they picked up Jack Flaherty coming back, so Tigers have a good prospects this year. And Winterfest was crazy as usual. Town was packed. It was really good, so, yeah. And snowstorm. I was just listening to Oliver Pine here talking about the sidewalks and that. I really would think if we had a snow event like we had with a large amount of snow, that it would be nice to run the plows through the sidewalks at least once through. I've been noticing a lot of people, because they're all iced now, and I've seen a lot of people walking in the streets. It's not, I don't think it's good for our community. So, and it's not just, I know the ordinance says that people are supposed to maintain their sidewalks, but when it comes down to the city not maintaining their own sidewalks, I mean, Central Park, parking lots, if you look around the sidewalks around town, it's not good. I'd like to see us go back and at least on main snow events that we come through and just run the plow through it, because I think it makes it more easier for people. Is it?
Anything else? Okay.
No, I just
No, I'm good.
want to, well, one thing I'll go and say is that I want to say thank you to all our DPW and everybody, all the hard work that they've been putting in. I mean, the weather was extremely, extremely cold, and they're out there working in the trenches. I mean, those guys, and same thing with public safety with the fire. What an event happened here in town, and if you look and see that how close the house is next to the building that was on fire, and how that it survived. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, the fire was so intense. So, yeah, I'm gonna say thank you for them for what they did. They worked so hard. And all the people that came from outside our area to help contain it. So it could have been worse. It could have had, we could have lost the whole block. So that's it.
Okay, thanks. Karen?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo Councilmember Fritz's comments about our Department of Public Safety, and our thanks for keeping that fire from spreading, and all they did to protect, human life that night. So really appreciate that. And our Department of Public Works, boy, this has just been a bear of a month, and we really appreciate all the work that they go through, Derek. I would just like to address something Mr. Hagan brought up, and I think it's really important, and I want to thank him for continuing to push this forward, because he's right on one point. I know I have a lot of constituents that have a fear that there are things that are going on, no matter how transparent we try to be, that the minute that we look away or you're away for a weekend, something's going to get passed here or gets surprised. And when there's detailed plans such as what was uncovered, I think it surprised everyone. I think Mayor Manetza mentioned this in our prior meeting, though, that this wasn't at the request of even the prior council, nor did it come before council at any time. And nor was it at the, is this of any interest to this council? But I can appreciate why he might want, some statement or to the public that says, look, this is just not the intent. These are plans that are were on the shelf. They were done when they were done. And as I understood, they were done sort of free of charge as part of but back at the time. But
I can't say.
I can't say. They clearly weren't something that was approved by council for, money to be spent on that. But it's certainly of no interest of mine and any of the council members from what they've said that's going to come back. But I want to just acknowledge that there is a very, in the interest of fairness and transparency, there still is that trust issue or concern that this might spring up sometime at a meeting in the future, which is, I understand why he wanted to bring that forward and make sure that it's out there in the public. So I want to thank you, Jim, for doing that.
Oh, okay. And yes, in a project like that, if it did come forward, presented to council, I believe the planning commission would play a role in that because our ordinance requires that things that are extensions of right-of-way or projects outside of rights-of-way and such are still making appearances at planning commission. Sometimes they waive the right to review them, but it becomes public. And we've generally held work sessions or a presentation to the public so that these things, when they do surface, if they do, that they're not a surprise to everyone. So there's opportunity for feedback. And so that there's something sitting on the shelf, okay, apparently there is, but it wouldn't be enacted without considerable public process. And that's kind of on us to make sure that happens. So I think that if that project or another like it, like the 7th Street Corridor project that we held work sessions on, which hopefully will come to happen someday, those are things which get a lot of public exposure. So it won't be sprung on anybody in the dark of night, I promise. A couple things we mentioned about the Forum Building fire. Did a great job. We had a lot of mutual aid from other fire departments as far away as Whitehall, Montague, Holton. They sent tanker trucks because we had so much water we were pouring on that building. We had 3 aerial vehicles. We had men on the ground with hoses dumping water in that building. They must have put 1 million gallons of water on it. Maybe I'm not even there. Yeah, okay, I'm getting the thumbs up from back in the room there. We put a lot of water on that, and we literally exceeded the capacity of the water main in the area because it's an old 60-year-old 6-inch water main that, ironically enough, is due to be replaced this fall when we rebuild Fulton Street. So if this were to happen, like after that, we'd be better equipped to fight a fire. I don't know, even at that, if we could have provided 1 million gallons, but we had a regular bucket brigade of tanker trucks circulating around town, drawing water elsewhere, bringing it to the site. They would empty those trucks in like 4 or 5 minutes. They'd have each one empty, and they just kept them coming. So we had a lot of mutual support. We had a very professional, very competent, very comprehensive response to that fire, and it was a very stubborn fire. So I'm sorry that it happened. I'm sorry for the losses that people incurred, but I think we coped with it as best we could within our means. And now I understand that between the DDA and the city administration and others that we're doing what we can for those people who lost their business, and lost their spaces, and trying to help them survive. So that was I think the city kind of shone through on this one. This is the beginning of Black History Month. Quite often we'll have a proclamation to acknowledge that. I understand that there's something in the works, but it wasn't ready for tonight. So we'll see that yet before the month is over. I would note that tomorrow morning there'll be an economic forecasting forum with Dr. Paul Isley, the chamber is putting it on. Looking forward to that. He's always very insightful, very comprehensive in his analysis and the information he brings forward. He surveys all the area businesses, and he has a real pulse on the West Michigan economy. So that's always something that I enjoy listening to. I learn a lot. I'm not an economist by trade. I'm an engineer, but I still enjoy what they have to say, and it always makes sense because he explains it so well. I was privileged to witness the 4 chaplains ceremony that the Legion put on Saturday. A very touching ceremony. It was honoring the 4 chaplains who went down with the Dorchester when it was torpedoed in World War II, and they gave away their life vests for others. They helped calm people trying to get in lifeboats, and most of the people were lost, but a couple hundred were saved, and through the efforts of those 4 and others like them. So there again, we're honoring people who have played an important role in our history, and it kind of speaks to values and things that were done that we need to acknowledge and continue. It's part of our culture. And that's about it for me, so a little long-winded, but I'll turn it over to Ashley.
I don't have anything this evening.
Okay, then it's a good thing I was long-winded.
Worked out.
Okay. Well, that brings us then to our second call to the audience. This is our second opportunity. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call may dial 616-935-3203. Who would like to address council? Don't all rush up at once. Well, seeing none, then I will close the second call to the audience, and that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you all for coming.